Well, Steve, thank you for welcoming us onto your, what do you call this, an abode?
Our little boatyard.
A little boatyard, yeah. So we're sat in between the beautiful Annie, and Cecil the Combi. Why?
Yeah.
What have we got going on here? Where are we, and what is this place to you?
So this was home for many years until my cleverer than me wife decided we should rent a house for winter. Yeah, the boat's been home for 20 years, and the kids have grown up on it and love it to bits. Love being off grid, make your own electric, catch your rainwater on the roof. All the heating's just a wood burner. But over the years, we, to keep the boat alive and to try and have some kind of positive environmental impact on this beautiful planet, we thought we'd use the old boat to sail around with volunteers picking up plastic rubbish from the coast around here. We're spoiled rotten with beaches in Cornwall. There are literally hundreds of stunning beaches. A lot of them are very accessible and loads of other people do beach cleans, but not many people do beach cleans in the places you can't get to by land. So that's what the boat's about. And then my old friend Cecil here, who's been my everyday car for 28 years, I've adapted him to run on veg oil to reduce the carbon footprint, and he also helps us with the beach cleans. He's got a big old winch on the front, so whenever there's anything stuck under a rock or something that's too heavy for us to move, Cecil gets stuck in and hauls it for us. He also wears a little crane on the front, a little A-frame that picks up the dumpy bags of rubbish and moves them around for us. So yeah, bless him, he works very hard, and so does the old boat.
So all of that is part of something called Clean Ocean Sailing, which is essentially your initiative, your charity, your work. What would you classify Clean Ocean Sailing as?
We're just a volunteer group. We're just an NGO. We're not registered as a charity. We behave like a charity, but we were nicknamed, the New York Times actually nicknamed us the Plastic-Free Pirates. We're just a hard-working volunteer group, and I'm really proud to say that there's now over 160 people in our WhatsApp group. So they're core members who, at the drop of a hat, if somebody, quite often what happens is somebody's walking their dog on a coast path, they might spot a big piece of ghost gear. Ghost gear is abandoned or lost fishing gear, and sometimes it can be hundreds of kilograms. So we head off with some volunteers in a bit of a hurry in our emergency response vehicle. Rapid response, not very rapid. But as long as we get there before the next tide, the tide comes and takes it back to sea, and then it's obviously a massive risk for marine mammals and seabirds and all sorts. So yeah, it's become a thing that people want to come and help us with, and it's wonderful to have so much support from local businesses, and it's mainly the volunteers. They make it happen. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but it does need a band of pirates, volunteers in the middle to make it all happen. So between yourself and your wife Monica, and your kids as well, and Cecil, you do make it work. And you joked about an emergency response vehicle, but that's what a lot of these old vans were for so long. When they were first built, they were treated as buses, they were treated as ambulances, work vans, and this thing's still going. So this was, do you know what year this was created?
72.
1972. So it's a T2, so it's the second generation. But what still exists from that vehicle that rolled off the production line?
Yeah, well, the shell, obviously, and the doors is still, most of it's original. As you can see, I've had to weld a lot of bits onto
Just
them
one
over
or
the
two
years.
bits, yeah.
A few, yeah. A bit like Trigger's broom, But because I've got nothing against the Volkswagen air-cooled engine. It's an amazing piece of engineering, but mainly for environmental reasons, we changed to a diesel that can run on veg oil. So we've got a Peugeot diesel. Then it's really hard nowadays to get small, strong off-road tyres, 13 and 14 inch. Just don't make them anymore, so I had to go with bigger wheels. So the wheels are actually off a Mercedes. So he's mostly Volkswagen with a bit of Mercedes. Some of the plumbing is off a Volvo. Some of the other bits, the air filter intake and everything, is also off a Skoda, and a Peugeot engine. So he's a bit of a cobble together of all sorts.
It's a plug-in hybrid of sorts, isn't it?
Yeah, sort of.
What were you doing in Australia?
Yeah, I met a girl. She had 4 tickets to go to Oz, and one of the other girls dropped out last minute. So it was just suddenly like, this girl I've just met, I really like her, but she's going to the other side of the world for at least a year. What do I do? So I just drew out the 50 quid I had in the bank, got a backpack and went with her, and ended up in Sydney with not a bean to my name. We hitched down to Canberra where we knew someone, so we could stay there for a bit. And yeah, I went and got a job as a mechanic, and off the back of that, my boss managed to convince the immigration people that he needed to employ me over an Aussie mechanic because they had a couple of Minis and a couple of Land Rovers and some European cars. And 6 months later, I found Cecil, $400, and he was a bit of a mess. He'd been a taxi for the first 25 years of his life. He had just rows of seats. He didn't have the roof. He wasn't ever a campervan originally. Yeah. He was a minibus. Okay. So he had windows all the way around, but he just had rows of seats. And he used to do the airport run from Canberra to Sydney and back with 3 different drivers. So he already had 800,000 kilometres on the clock when I found him.
Yeah.
And I spent 6 months working on him, rebuilt the engine, lifted the suspension a little bit, made a few other little modifications because I wanted to go on a circumnavigation of Australia and up through the middle, and the vast majority of, well, I call them roads in the loosest possible sense. Yeah, it was an awful lot of off-roading, and bless him, he somehow managed to do all that. And it was actually, my plan was to sell him at the car auctions in Sydney and then fly home, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Yeah. And just down the hill from the car auctions was the docks, and I just saw this container ship, and I just thought, oh, I wonder. So I went and asked, and they said $1,200 and you can have a 20-foot container, put your van in it. So I was like, so I quickly sold my ticket, flight home ticket, and put Cecil in a container and sent him back to Felixstowe. And yeah, he's been here ever since. We've done a bit of a trip around Europe and been all around since then. But yeah, he's just been my everyday car since then.
It was already a bit of a campervan vehicle from what you had done. But in terms of like the stuff that we've been discussing, like some adding the winch on the front and doing some stuff for you to do with clean ocean sailing, when did that begin? Yeah,
so originally he was a minibus, as I said, and he was just rows of seats. In Australia, I got rid of the rows of seats, made the rock and roll bed in the back, and fitted him out with cupboards. I just copied the Westphalia basically, put a wardrobe in, pop top, copied all of that, and he was home for several years. That's where I lived. In Oz with my girlfriend, and then I lived in him back here in the UK as well whilst I worked. And then over time, when I got married and had children, wife wanted a house, so we bought a wreck of an old cottage, and then I needed a van, so ripped the interior out. So then he was just a panel van for carrying materials around and taking all the rubble to the away, and he just carried lots of stuff for about 10 years. He did the school run and carried stuff around. And then we started wanting to get back into camping and going and finding nice places to camp up and tour around. So I thought, you know what, I actually want him to be a bit of a mixture now. I want space to be able to carry stuff, but I also want the bed back in there, and I want the kids to be able to sleep in the roof and a little fire, and just really simple, just something really basic. And then over time, yeah, I mean, originally in Australia they call them the Combi, short for combination, and Cecil's probably the most combination of all because he does all of these things, and he's also a crane. So it was when we started hauling all the beach trash around. Well, first of all, there isn't any plastic recycling in Cornwall. We have to go over the border to Devon, which is 90 miles away. Yeah. So regularly he does that run up to Exeter, which is where the recycling centre is. Then we were stuck with some nets and ropes, so I fitted the winch to help us pull stuff off the beaches. And then rather than breaking my back when we do the river cleanups here, we use an old rowing boat, and we come back here and all the rubbish is in a dumpy bag, and sometimes if it's fishing gear it can be 150 kilos. So I put this little crane attachment on the front, so you just operate the winch with remote control, and you can just pick up these dumpy bags and move them around. So he's kind of evolved as my life's evolved, and we've gone off on this tangent more towards clean ocean sailing and doing the beach cleanups. The vans had to evolve as well, and that's what's so brilliant about these. They're just such a brilliant sort of platform to put anything on. Like you said, originally they were fire engines and ambulances and pickup trucks and all sorts. So the mechanicals are so simple. You can just weld a bit on or bolt a bit on, and it becomes something else.
What was it about the VW vehicle that made you think that's the one that I want?
Good question. I've always been into that. My children loved watching the Herbie films. I remember it. You can't not love Herbie. And the way these look, I mean, they just look like a loaf of bread, which is just hilarious. But I think I found Cecil because he was for sale just round the corner for $400, which I could afford, and it was a project that I wasn't very good at welding then, so, and there wasn't any rust, so I was like, yeah, I could do the mechanical bits. I mean, a Land Rover would be really tempting. A Toyota Land Cruiser would be as well. You know, all these vehicles could be modified. In fact, out in Australia, they do that quite a lot. They put a pop top on them and they put a little camper stove in the back. But for the size of this on the outside, for the size of it on the inside, and for what you can do with it, I don't think there is another vehicle that's that versatile. You know, Cecil's got 8 seats, and he's a camper van that can sleep 4 comfortably, and he's a Land Rover, and he's a ridiculous tow vehicle, and he's a crane, and he fits in a normal parking space as well. Yeah. And now he's up near 50 miles to the gallon as well on this engine, and he's tax and MOT exempt. Insurance is peanuts, 70 quid a year for me. I just can't think there is another vehicle actually. Leaving the love bit aside for a minute, just trying to put a practicalness onto it. Yeah, all these other vehicles they're all better at certain things, but they kind of specialise a little bit, whereas Cecil just doesn't really discriminate. He just does everything. I was explaining about the versatility of it, but I do get attached. I am attached to Cecil. I do love him to bits, and we've been through so much together. It's like when I originally was going to sell him at the car auctions in Sydney, I just thought back over the last 18 months of driving around Australia, 35,000 miles, most of it off-road, getting stuck in the deserts, rescuing other people. And even when he broke down, I mean, one time he broke down literally in the middle of nowhere, and like a complete idiot. We were touring around in the middle of summer. So we thought, oh, someone will be along. 5 days later, still not a single vehicle had passed, and we're getting low on water and food. We're like, we're going to have to get ourselves out of here. Yeah. And basically, without boring you with too much mechanical nonsense, he'd overheated, and one side of the engine, a valve had fallen out, smashed the piston up, and made a huge mess of that side of the engine. But because it was a flat 4, I just thought, well, the other side's all right. So we took the pistons and the cylinder head and everything off, made some wooden bungs to stop all the oil pouring out, and put him together and drove him to Brisbane on 2 cylinders. Wow. And he literally saved our life. Yeah. You know, and I just thought, well, I can't just get rid. No. The kids just love it so much. You know, you go and find somewhere beautiful to park up by the sea usually. Put the roof up, and there's little windows in the side of the roof, and the kids get up there looking out their little windows, and you get the fire going, and he's a cosy, toasty little home from home, who can go anywhere pretty much. And yeah, that's really the magic of these vans. Yeah. You spoke a little bit about your camping trips. What is your typical camping setup these days? How does it turn into a camping vehicle? Really simple. I mean, when you're out and about, you're not just sitting in the van. You're out, you're playing on the beach or surfing or whatever. Yeah. So it's just a place to sleep. So you literally just pull up. I might chuck a lump of wood under a tyre to level him slightly if it's really leany. Yeah. The canoe comes off the roof in a couple of seconds. The roof just pops up. The bed pulls out. It's one of those rock and roll beds, and we just set up the bunks for the kids. There's a piece of wood in the roof that goes in the front there for Simon's little bunk, my 6-year-old. Okay. So that sort of hangs above the steering wheel. So there's 4 beds in there, and the dog sleeps on the floor here. And you got a little awning that comes out. Is that what that is? Really simple, just 2 sticks, a couple of guy ropes. It's only a roof. It doesn't have any sides or anything, but it keeps the rain off the side door when you're getting in and out. And I can't see any brand names, so I'm guessing you built a lot of these things yourself. That was an old army tent. Yeah. Someone threw away. It's a real tribute to clean ocean sailing as well, because it's all handmade, it's recycled stuff. And it still works. That's the beauty of it. Like you know, you can spend a lot on vehicles these days, and you know, we test a lot of pricey vehicles in our pages from time to time, and you know, a lot of people want to buy them, but you know, Cecil also proves that you can do things, you know, regardless of cost as well. So it's a credit to you and the family. The thing with us is you get an awful lot of bang for your buck. You know, £10 for example will fund the removal and recycling of 10 kilos of beach plastic, and £1,000 will do a whole ton. No. And when we do the Sillies last August, we picked up about 3 tons, and you know, it took us 3 or 4 weeks. The boat was fully loaded with 20 dumpy bags on each side, all full of this beach plastic. So yeah, if anybody would like to help us, just shove Clean Ocean Sailing into a search engine and you'll find our crowdfunder on there. Of course, we'll make sure that we share that with all our readers and all our followers.
and all the members of the Camping and Caravanning Club, because I think it is a very important thing that you do in here to make sure that, you know, Cornwall's beaches, I mean, we've got so many campsites around Cornwall and the southwest. No doubt you've been picking some stuff up to make sure that everyone's holidays have been fantastic. So just as, by way of thank you, I think people, hopefully people will, you know, head on over to the page and do what they can to support you. But yeah, keep up the good work, and yeah,
Thanks, mate.
keep up the good work, Cecil. Doing a great job.
Cheers.
Thank you very much, Steve.